It's time for Blood Round. It's time for blood. You grew arrested. Yeah, whatever. I don't even know the words, but leave it to our favorite wrestling crackheads, Tommy and Kevin, to not even be able to put themselves together on one show. So we welcome Tom Baranoski, not Team Poland, but Tommy Bloodround to all of us, to International Wrestling Podcast Day, co-host of your favorite beer drinking, Michigan-based wrestling podcast about beer drinking and wrestling. Tommy, welcome.
Thank you, JB. Honored to be included, and also amazing shirt. I'm really honored that on this prestigious International Broadcast Day, you would be wearing our shirt. That's fantastic.
Well, if you've been paying any attention as we put bloodround.com up on the screen, in case you're wondering if it's more than just a podcast, there's a preview guide there, which you can use promo code bloodround, which will still be active for the next millennium. And of course, Blood 20 if you're an Adidas guy. But enough with the show advertisements out of the way. Okay, Tommy, 301 episodes between you and Kevin. We've had the origin story back on like when you guys were like episode 30. I mean, it's been a long time since you guys were on Short Time. Let's give us the Tom version of why Blood Round started and where it's become 301 episodes, because that's a lot of drunken talking wrestling.
It really is, and you'd think we'd find the limit at some point, the theoretical limit, but we haven't. So thanks to Oberon and vodka and all the other things out there. But in all seriousness, at the time, Kevin and I were both working jobs where we were on the road a lot. So we were listening to podcasts rather than listening to radio with commercial breaks every 5 minutes of the same 7 songs, or talk radio, or whatever you want to do. I listened to a lot of comedian podcasts, and then I also listened to your podcast, and I really enjoyed your podcast of the interviews, very professional. So we thought, let's do the opposite. Let's have a very unprofessional, 2 guys kicking back, enjoying themselves, talking about way too much wrestling, and see what happens. And all of a sudden, it was 10 episodes, and 20 episodes, and 100 episodes. And yeah, every week when we fire up and it's episode 300 or 301 or 302 tonight, it just blows my mind, but we just keep coming.
Yeah, the International Podcast Day Wrestling Edition, you guys were part of kind of the idea behind this, because when I first discovered your show, I'm like, those guys are saying things that I wish I could say sometimes, but I don't feel like losing my media credentials or losing gigs. And I'm not talking about like controversial things. No, I just want to say F you to somebody sometimes. So, but I can't, and they'll never know who I'm talking about. But, you got, like we were talking about earlier with Jacob Hughley's, like 2 guys sitting in a bar talking about wrestling. That's what I love about the Inside Trip. That's what I love about Blood Round. And when we all get together, that's what we do. We enjoy our Oberons, our vodkas, or whatever, and talk about wrestling, especially for our recovery time tonight. I will be uncorking Pliny the Elder for the first time in my life. So Tony Rotundo going to share on that. But the unfiltered goodness, like an Oberon, I'm not sure if that's a show title or not, but just the evolution of this show. I mean, you and Kevin have been through this journey a long time. You guys have known each other a long time. But, when you finally sat down and recorded the first episode, what do you remember about that episode the most?
Well, it sucked, first of all.
Everybody's first show sucks, right? That's the rule.
And if I could be serious, the International Podcast Day, I encourage everybody, listen back to every one of your episodes. I've had to work on several verbal crutches of mine, and I think it's actually helped me professionally. For a while there, I actually went pinching myself throughout my daily life every time I said, If you listen back to an hour of you on the radio or somewhere, and you're saying every 5 seconds, I don't want to sound like that, I don't want to, and so I heard myself back one day say that. So I actually went around just pinching myself. And I'm prouder now that if I listen back to an episode, I don't sound like that. And we had no idea of the technical side of things. We were recording in way too heavy of episodes. Our sound quality was great, but no one could actually download it onto a device. There were just a lot of mistakes like that. And then you caught up to us after a few episodes. You're like, hey, guys, let me help you with a few tricks. And it was great. So that was a lot of props to you for that.
So here's how I remember that specifically. I discovered the show and listening at home, and then I'm sitting there going, why is this episode taking so freaking long to download? I'm on a drive up to my in-laws' place north of Garrison, Minnesota, and at the time I think I had 2 gigs of data. Now I'm way beyond that. I'm unlimited data. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, this thing 1%. And I'm sitting there I should not be looking. I'm waiting for this thing to download. I'm like, I'm trying to listen to these freaking morons because they're hilarious. And then I go, I reach out and then I look at, you were uploading the WAV file of a 90-minute discussion about wrestling in stereo. So in case you want to know why your overages were up around 2015-ish, it's because of these guys. Yeah, 2014, 15. The entire, here's a gig and a half of it. And so now you can use that little recorder, export to MP3. They're much faster, and they're not killing your listenership's data plan. So that's the one thing I remember about it.
And then also remember the first 2 episodes, one of us was in one ear, one of us was the other. So it's like the start of I Would Do Anything for Love when the motorcycle goes. It was actually, we were in each ear.
I don't get the reference. I know the song, but I don't like Meatloaf enough to actually.
In the beginning of the song, there's a motorcycle, and they record it to where it sounds.
You can tell me all you want, but I'm not gonna. It's like Kevin watching bad '80s movies that he never saw growing up. We'll actually.
It's a bad 80s song, but hey.
Yeah, we'll beat Kevin up when he actually decides to come on in a time that. Oh, see, that's what you guys did. You doubled up on the length of time here because I got a double dose of you guys now. What the heck?
We love to double team you.
This is too early in the day to get to go this route. I mean, that's maybe Kevin after the dinner time or in recovery time. But when it comes to the evolution of Bloodround, I mean, it's not just, for years it was 2 idiots talking wrestling, and that was in the title, and then you'd see it on iTunes, it'd just be like 2 idiots. So you guys have changed that to the Bloodround Wrestling Podcast, but there is now an actual age of legitimacy in terms of getting media credentials, writing articles. You guys have become a bona fide media presence. And what's that been like?
I still don't believe it half the time. Every time I put in for credentials.
Trust me, I'm the president of the Media Association. I can't believe it either.
Yeah, I honestly don't understand it. I think we kind of got grandfathered in just because we started so early, fall of 2014. I believe we started recording September of 2014, so we're over 6 years now, or I guess however you want to calculate that. But it's interesting. But I also am proud of it. I'm proud that we're able to contribute to the sport because that's really ultimately what we wanted to do: get people talking about wrestling. Figured there were like-minded individuals like us out there, and the community. As much as we get a bad rap for just being hard asses, the wrestlers running in and out of the mat and everything like that. The idea that there's so many people out there that do just love the sport and know that you don't always have to take it seriously. It's the barroom conversations after the matches. One thing that being like us, we can talk about those controversial calls. It's if you're a coach, you're an athletic director, you're a PA announcer like yourself, you can't really go, what the hell was that Iranian call? Or that seemed like homerism, or how many calls can go against one guy? Or, hey, I really don't like that call. Or we honestly feel that kid got screwed or something along those lines. People can't say that. So Kevin and I can just fire up and say that. But the community really responds well to it. So it's something we're really proud of.
Yeah, it's not something that, because Kevin has F-bombed several schools within the Mid-American Conference, and some that are no longer in the Mid-American Conference, and some that no longer have wrestling, several of which. And it's like, I'm sitting there, I'm listening to it the first time, I'm like, I spit my coffee out all over my screen. I fell over laughing because I wouldn't have been a million years think of saying that. And then of course, you guys don't hide it. Kevin's talked about almost getting in fights with Missouri parents, and just, he wears his Central Michigan homerism on his sleeve. But again, you bring up you guys can say that. And it's one thing about the medium is also, you don't have to be a media professional to do a podcast. I mean, now you guys have gotten in there and you're getting some credentials, but ultimately you're two buddies who like talking about wrestling, drinking beer, and apparently singing on Snapchat, because you get Kevin on Snapchat, you get him singing in the car when he was still driving because there was actually work to go to. And then with Tommy, you get Remy, the basically mini-me of Tommy right now, who is just laying waste to every bit of toys or anything or any major construction sites. This kid is responsible for the Godzilla movies. I mean, you've got just a different degree of mindset and just general being wrestling fans. But you also have the aspect of you're also a wrestling official. So you've also had to be very careful of how you're saying things now, although most of your stuff has not been you're not doing Carver for Big Ten duels at the moment, but you've got also watch some of the things you're looking at as well. And how's that kind of evolved with the way you move up as an official as well?
It is interesting that there's been news about some wrestlers the same week that I actually reffed some of their matches at an open or something. So I got to go, can't really talk about him much. Or I have to tell Kevin, you might have to lead this one because I got to sit back here. I really don't want to say anything. I do believe in officiating that, first of all, I never expected to be at that point in officiating or in podcasting. So this definitely wasn't the plan by any stretch of the imagination. I didn't know we were going to go 10 episodes, and I didn't know if I would ever ref state meets or start reffing decent-sized college tournaments or anything like that. So both things have sort of gone up in a trajectory I really wasn't expecting. Biting my tongue has never been my strong suit in any facet of life. So, yeah, it's a little difficult for me sometimes. But I think it also gives me an interesting perspective, though, because we like to rail on wrestling fans as being crazies, but a lot of them do respect just an honest call, an honest, hey, going through criteria of maybe what that ref was looking at for that takedown or for that escape or what stalling call you would be there or from a different perspective. And I do think people have responded to that pretty well. As well, without just going, oh man, you're a homer for here, or you're a homer for that, or you just like this person, or you just like that. I do think that you can talk officiating without crossing that line, and talk takedowns, and talk what they're looking at, and make rule suggestions, and maybe give it from a perspective where obviously 301 episodes in, I love wrestling. This isn't my full-time job. I'm not making money really off of this any more than maybe a cup of coffee here and there. So yeah, I think people do have grafted onto the fact that if I'm giving my opinion, I'm giving my honest opinion.
One thing about the opinions that you and Kevin have is they're not always aligned. And it's funny when you guys will sit there and 90% of the time, I think you guys agree with one another. But then again, you've got the officiating perspective. You both coach together. And then there's also the Michiganders in you guys and things of that nature that just provide some general discourse that is hilarious. Now, with your jobs that you've had over the years throughout the course of the show, you've actually done a podcast longer than you've had some of your jobs, which is kind of interesting. And we sit there and you're talking, you'll be driving on the East Coast, and COVID has created a bit of a difference in how we record shows. Most of the time it's you guys sitting in the same room, but how have you guys worked out the pandemic struggles with recording your show and then easing back into being in the same space? And, what have those things been like to just put out the show?
I'd say the kids have been more of a challenge over the years than COVID. I mean, we got our daily jobs, and then we
by having them, right?
yeah, exactly. It is kind of funny. Kevin and I both sort of got poached near the same time, so we both have changed jobs since we started this, which is interesting too. But we're actually both in incredibly better spots than we were, which is good because we're both in that bad age of when we were getting out of college. The economy sucked, and so we've had to crawl and claw up a little bit. But yeah, the kids can be tougher. The coronavirus at first, yeah, we were kind of waiting and seeing, and then we live about 20 minutes from each other, 25 minutes from each other, so not always the easiest to get together on a Tuesday night. I mean, sometimes we have terrible weather up here in Michigan, in West Michigan, in the lake effect snow belt. so sometimes it's easier to record using our handy H6N and doing it over the phone or Skyping or however it makes more sense. So, it's been adjustments, but the show's a lot better when we're in person. So at the end of the day, we try to get together in person.
Although, what was it? One of those where you guys, what was a snowstorm or something? You guys were caught. It's like, well, you're like, nah, I'm just turning back around. I can't. I remember that being a situation, or if it was a meet. I can't remember exactly.
No, yeah, Kevin definitely tried to come over and just got stuck, and he was just like, I can't make it. And I'm like, yeah, that's more than fine. And one day I actually thought I was going to end up sleeping at his house just because it just was sheer ice out there. Had a couple beers, so it was one of those things. One of those things where you're kind of, sometimes in Michigan, weather can, especially West Michigan, it can change in a drop of a hat. And it was just one of those where it was a fine day, and then all of a sudden I went to step outside and it was a sheet of ice. It's like, oh, well, I guess I'll go see if the main road is okay. Otherwise, I'm coming back and I might have to sleep here, Kevin.
I remember sleeping I wasn't sleeping. I was in Pennsylvania, and I had helped a friend fix a computer in Harrisburg, and where I lived between Harrisburg and Lancaster was where Mannheim was, where the NWCA was. And there was like an overturned tractor trailer like a quarter of a mile ahead of me, and I was stuck on this thing. I'm trying to beat the snow back to Lancaster, and I ended up sitting there till like 6 a.m. and thankfully I had the Wi-Fi card that they used to slide in. I mean, it was early days of the Verizon. So I'm like, I had my laptop with me because I'd left work. I'm like, hey, Pat, I'm still stuck on 280. I'm going to be late getting into the office. And thankfully I could show him pictures, so he wasn't just thinking I was making up a reason to show up late, and get him coffee like I had to do when I was late updating Intermat at 3 a.m. for Boise State, Portland State scores. But stuck in the snow, Pennsylvania. I can feel you. I can feel you there with Minnesota as well. This isn't a weather show. That's my tweets.
yeah. Real quick though, I actually thought I was going to be stuck in Louisville at the national duels. I was getting the Lowell wrestling team was helping with the New Way was helping put on the national duels. So I'm asking the Lowell people, I'm like, how is it looking? How's it looking? And they're like, some of the kids that were volunteering are taking off at 4:00 in the afternoon. I still have to rep for a while. I'm like, I guess I'm staying in Louisville for another day or two. The weather was just going to hell up here. So yeah, it'll happen to you quickly.
Yeah, and as far as we've talked about 301 episodes, you and Kevin did that show. Not that Brent Metcalf was 300 and then 301. And when you say we didn't know we would get that far, we know we were doing 10 episodes. When we're talking to Jude and Sam with Home Mat Advantage, talking about running into their heroes and such, and being able to they didn't say heroes, but it's like, oh wow, that's Tony Ramos. He just said, hey, hi to me. And now you guys being wrestling fans and people knowing who Bloodround is, you've got your own, like, not troll Twitter account, that there's a Bloodround RTC account out there that you guys don't run. So, I mean, in the world of social media, you guys got to come full circle of being the loudmouth goofy guys to now having loudmouth goofy guys follow you around.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I remember someone recognizing me by my voice in the stands at Indiana at the Big Tens. They just turned around and they went, wait a second, are you Tommy from Bloodround? Or they're like, I legit heard your voice. And that happened to me at a ref meeting. I said, hey, we're just doing this. We're rotating this way, and we'll keep everything moving. Any questions? And then one of the guys, as I was walking out of the room, like, are you the guy I listen to your podcast? So I don't know. Some of that stuff is pretty entertaining when it actually happens in real life too. Sometimes I think Twitter's kind of this, and then my real life is over here, or something like that. But it does intersect sometimes. And getting to talk to some of your heroes is great too. And some of the coaches, some of the guys like Kenny Monday. I grew up wrestling. When I grew up wrestling, I was born in '83. So when I was wrestling, when I was 8, 10, 12 years old, Kenny Monday was like the baddest guy on the planet. Oh my gosh, Kenny Monday. And of course he has the name like a pro wrestler too, Kenny Monday. Like that's just good branding. But so that was great. And then I mean, Jay Moore hopping on the podcast. I was always just a huge Jay Moore fan.
You guys got him before I did. I've been trying to talk to him for like 3 years to get him on. I mean, I'm texting the guy like like a full year before you got him. I was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm like trying to line him up was just like, it was like, what? Wait, what? Wait. And then you guys got him on twice. And I'm like, and then Tim Gaither was a good catch too, because I wasn't aware of him. But like, you got Jay Moore. I mean, Jay's coaching high school wrestling with Adam Hunter, who I've had on my show. And I'm like, damn, freaking Bloodround got him before I did.
Yeah, I still don't know how that was possible, but all of a sudden I'm talking to Jay Moore and he's doing Christopher Walken as a wrestling ref on our podcast. And I'm just sitting there. It's just one of those surreal moments where you're like, this is the best.
Who do you want to get next?
I'd like to get Dan Gable on. I have questions about him, but also the 1970s wrestlers like Saunders, Chris Taylor. Chris Taylor's a West Michigan guy from here. Saunders, I think, is one of those crazy, interesting stories. The Portland State wrestler, gone too soon, unfortunately. There's a heavyweight from Grand Valley who lost to Bruce Baumgartner as the 2 seed. He got upset by this young unknown sophomore from Indiana State. And then he played in the NFL. So those are a few of the targets I have right now that I'd love to go after.
Yeah, so we were standing at one place in Iowa, or Coralville technically, when the Gable was there, and then you also had the opportunity to ask some questions of Jim Gibbons and such, and get answers to some of your lifelong questions. And what's it like to be able to just kind of actually have conversations with these guys and be like, all right, and then mention it back on the show, not necessarily have them on the show, but like, yeah, so I was talking to Gable, we were at 30 Hop, and I was asking him about this, and then that's content for you guys. It's like, it's not just like I'm sitting in the stands, but I'm a fan, I'm an official, but I'm also a former coach. Like you've got the entire gamut of what wrestling people are, and then you can now share in these opportunities and share it with not just Kevin, but everybody else.
I love it. It's a blessing, but yeah, it's awesome. I mean, I'm just a huge wrestling fan, and I remember getting an autograph from Kevin Jackson at I think the state championships in 1994 or something like that, and he was just this imposing figure, and I'm 11 or 12, and it just stuff like that, and having those experiences, being able to ask Gibbons about prison strength, Joe Cologne. Just off the wall stuff like that, having those opportunities.
Yeah, those are questions I'm not asking him.
Yeah, it's just great. It's great, and as you know, they can tend to be a little more candid when they're not on camera.
That was also the night that 30 Hop we discovered that they had KBS on draft.
Yes,
for cheap for Kentucky breakfast stout.
Yeah, that was amazing. I was able to buy you your first ever Kentucky breakfast stout, so honored to do that as well.
Yeah, and it was. I also learned it was the wrong thing to do is when you go to an Iowa-Minnesota football game, and then gallivant around the city, and then come home, and then order the Khabib fight, and you finish the night with a KBS. That is not going to be a good morning for you, because you don't spend all day drinking Busch lattes and things of that nature, and then finish the night off with a KBS. I tell you that.
No, that's not a good dessert in that situation.
No, most of the time it is. But as we got about a couple minutes to go here on part 1 of the Bloodround edition of the International Podcast Day. One of these things is that you and Kevin never seem to be in the same places as our friends at the same time. It's like happened very, very infrequently. And then there's times where, okay, there's you, and then Tommy, we lose Tommy, but his sister's still hanging out. So you guys don't have the best track record of being true running buddies together.
Yeah, I think we're bad influences on each other, but also we've had when I first started going to events. Actually, let me back up. When we started the podcast, we were on a pretty good run of 6 Big Tens in a row, but then Kevin popped out. His wife popped out like 3 kids in 4 years or 5 years, so that put a damper on his traveling schedule for a while there. Got to NCAAs at Pittsburgh, but yeah, that is one of the rare events that we've been at the same time. Damn kids, man, they get in the way of everything. So the first 2 rules of Bloodround: don't get married, don't have kids.
Yeah, or and then there may be somebody showing up your door at 4:00 in the morning in an Airbnb in Pittsburgh. But
oh yeah, that was
we'll talk to Kevin.
Such a rough night. That was such a rough night for me.
Yeah. Kevin's out the door as I'm showing up. I'm like, okay, this is we'll talk about that in the recovery time. But Tom, always good chatting with you. Of course, we speak. Well, we don't speak. We are in a digital conversation frequently, probably for the last, I don't know, probably I don't even know how long it's been, but I hear from this guy frequently. So check out the show at bloodround.com. Any final words before we get to our next show here on International Podcast Day, the Wrestling Edition?
Well, happy International Podcast Day, JB. You've been a big help to us. I hope people know that out there, that we just probably never would have got on iTunes or anything like that if it wasn't for you. So I definitely appreciate it. Love the show. You do a great job, and hopefully looking to be at an event with you here soon.
Sounds good. All right. That's Tommy Bloodround, because he didn't spelling his own last name because it's hard to say, and Polish. That's all I got. We'll see Claunch later.